you. It's a great pleasure for me to see my students, progressing and reaching to a level that they become our colleagues, our friends, and share the same goals, same ideals, and work together, to realize those ideals. So I thank Allah Ta'ala. And I remember Tuba coming as a very young girl, to Atik Valide Külliyesi, to Center for Sciences and Arts, and joining the group. Mashallah, she was very ambitious, serious, and hardworking. Alhamdulillah. Now, she's a faculty member at Ibn Khaldun University, teaching Islamic law and Usul fiqh and fiqh subjects. She's a very she's a teacher, instructor that students like a lot. She's a very popular teacher and instructor. And I hope that she also teaches at Usul Academy, inshallah ta'ala. Her specialization in fiqh is a field which is conventionally called biomedical ethics and law, but I like to call it biofiqh. She works on biomedical issues, because there are so many new issues, in that field, and our fuqaha are working on these issues, because technology is progressing so fast. But is everything technologically possible, ethical, lawful, and moral? That's the question. For people who don't care about ethical, moral limitations, if something is technologically possible, go ahead and do it. But we Muslims, we are not like this. If something technologically possible, scientifically possible, we also explore whether it's moral, ethical, and lawful to do it. So that's why many scholars, work on these issues, and Tuba Hoca is one of them, and also one of the distinguishing qualities that Tuba presents is that she's a mom and she's a scholar. She's a good instructor. So she represents how a Muslim woman becomes a scholar, a wife, and a mom at the same time. Managing all these things together, alhamdulillah, and I believe, by setting a good example to other young girls, she's doing a good service, alhamdulillah, because ambitious young Muslim girls don't have many good role models. How you can become a scholar, but at the same time a wife, but at the same time, a mom, how you can take care of all these things at the same time together. Mashallah, she's doing an excellent job with this respect, and presenting a good role model, to the younger students. Thank you very much, Tuba Hoca, for accepting our invitation to give a talk at Usul Academy, and we are looking forward to listening to you and learning from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Recep Hocam, for your wonderful introduction. It was very emotional for me. And first of all, I also want to thank you for invitation. I'm really honored to be with you today. Inshallah, in the future, I would like to be part of the Usul Academy. I will share a screen, and then inshallah I will start. Oh, sorry. Yes. First of all, today we are going to talk about a subject that's very important to me, the issue of the human dignity. So I will look at this issue especially from the Islamic law perspective. I'm sure that you hear about the human dignity a lot. But what is the human dignity exactly, and why does it matter? So in this talk, I will discuss its meaning, its place in the Islamic framework, especially in the Islamic law framework. The issue of dignity needs to be examined in an interdisciplinary and holistic manner with its religious, philosophical, moral, and legal dimensions. In building theory, so here is my outline of speech. In building theory based on the concept, I will analyze texts that are considered cornerstones of law school. Since my field, as Recep Hoca said, my field of expertise is fiqh, I will look at from this perspective. So I'm not going to detail in the hadith or tafsir. And also, I will search that what context and how the concept of human dignity is mentioned in Islamic law. Later, I will demonstrate the reflection of theory in practice within the framework of certain examples, inshallah. So, what is the human dignity? In most basic definition, the concept of human dignity is the belief that all people hold a special value that's tied solely their humanity. It has nothing to do with their class, race, gender, religion, abilities, or any other factor other than being human. So this emphasized in the hadith also. The term dignity actually has evolved over the years. Originally, the Latin, English, and French words for dignity didn't have anything to do with a personal inherent value. And for decades, actually, the concept of human dignity has been a battlefield in many areas. There are two basic approaches to the concept of human dignity. First, dignity as a dysfunctional concept argued by Ruth MacLean, very famous in bioethic, and also the Kurt Byers. In particular, MacLean argues that the concept of honor or dignity is a useless concept. He has a very famous article on it, Dignity as a Useless Concept, the title of his article. So if you wish, you can look later. And second approach, the dignity as the most fundamental value for human life. The majority of scholars maintain the essentiality of the concept of dignity. So I'm also in the second part, second group. So human dignity is at the heart of human rights. Why? Because there are so many abuses in history. So we don't even need to go far back for this. For example, human zoos in Europe and America, just a few centuries ago, are an example of this. So hard to believe, but have you ever heard of human zoos? It's really hard to believe. There is, alhamdulillah, there is no such shameful problem in the history of Muslims, and we will understand better why this problem didn't exist in the history of Muslims from the example that I will explain, inshallah, in the following parts. So in the late 80s, colonial exhibits became popular in West, and human zoos spread throughout Europe and America in the 19th centuries. Also, human zoos in Europe were full of Africans, and those in the America were full of the Filipinos, unfortunately. So here, this is a picture taken from another human zoo. It's very sad, this picture, to see this picture. So As you can understand from the pictures, the concept of dignity, the idea of human dignity has recently been accepted in the West for every human being. For example, dignitas in Rome is only for the context of the ius naturale, just for people of Rome, not for all people. So with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in this concept of the human dignity was accepted in the West for all people accepted. So I won't extend this subject further because it's not my main topic, but I can suggest sources on the subject for detailed reading. Dignity in Islamic thought. So the concept of the human dignity isn't limited to human rights. In fact, for centuries, religions around the world have recognized a form of human dignity as we now understand it. So most religions teach that humans are essentially equal for one reason or another. So now I would like to take a detailed look at the approach of Islam, which is my main talk today, inshallah. In Islamic thought, the concept of dignity is expressed in a different words, such as al-karama and al-izza, al-isma, and al-hurma. So when I look at the classical books, I saw that these words were mostly used. There's other words also, but mostly these words were used. Although each of these concepts contains the concept of dignity, they are separated from each other in various ways. For example, al-karama refers to dignity that all people have, and izza is the dignity obtained by believing in Allah and obeying His commands and prohibitions. Isma and hurma mean the rights protect against others generally. In this concept, the concept used in a similar, the idea of human dignity is usually the word of karama. Why? The reason why the word karama is preferred in the sources to express human dignity is because in this verse of Surah Al-Isra and also Surah Al-Hujurat, phrase ekramna or karamna are used. So these two verses are the verses that scholars most refer to the both classical text and also modern text on the subject of human dignity. In the verse of Surah Al-Isra, it says that وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. So we have dignified the children of Adam. It's clearly emphasized that a human being is dignified. So I would like to draw your attention to the 2 points in this verse. First, this verse has dalalatul qat'iyya, laqad karramna, which means that it has definite implication. And second, this verse has general meaning and use the phrase children of Adam instead of believers or instead of Muslimun. So Alusi, an important professor in the 13th century, when he explained this verse, he said that every member of humanity, whether sinful or pious, has dignity. Also, in his work Tabyinul Haqa'iq al-Zayla'i, refers to expression that people have dignity without any limitation. And he said that this ayah evidence for dignity of every child born legitimately or illegitimately. So I think that the Zayla'i especially used the phrase illegitimate to eliminate any possible question. Also, I want to draw attention to same verse for another reason. It's an important consideration that dignity mentioned in the verse doesn't depend on any characteristics. So this situation shows that a person directly acquires the adjective of al-karama. Oh, sorry. And Baberti, one of the Hanafi scholars, in his work Al-Inaya, mentioned dignity as a big grace from Allah to all people. And for this reason, this value given not only to believers, but also to all people. And Baberti states that dignity can only disappear if Allah wills, since it's given by Allah. So I think that's a very important point, that a person cannot give up and transfer even at will. Apart from the concept of karama, another important term is the connect with human dignity is isma. Recep Hoca has an article on, and also book in Turkish, maybe translate in English, on isma. So I will recommend to you to read it. I just want to summarize that al-isma, the word of isma, defines how a person should be treated as the concept of dignity. So in other words, the most important feature of isma is that it protects a human from all kind of unfair interference. Sarakhsi, when he explained isma, he used very similar explanation like Baberti, and he said that a person is mukallaf, responsible with worship, is directly related to the inviolability of right of life, intellect, prophet, lineage, and also dignity in this regard. So as a result, the concept of human dignity in Islamic legal philosophy was expressed in terms of karama and also isma. The use of this concept and as an argument usually occurs where fiqh problems are discussed. So from the second part, I will show some examples, inshallah, how the fuqaha use the human dignity as evidence. So first one, human organs being as the subject of sale contracts. In fiqh book, the subject in which the discourse of human dignity is mostly mentioned is the issue of any human part being an object of sale contract. So they generally, I found that in this issue, they use the argument of the human dignity. As a matter of fact, fuqaha based on human dignity, that any part of human shouldn't be an object of sale contract. So in other words, they said that selling parts that are separated from human body is considered devaluing for it, and using this part is considered as a humiliation and insult for human being. For example, according to Baberti, it's not the right of anyone to humiliate an entity that Allah has glorified and dignified. So he said that this is a betrayal to human being, and this area where only Allah can intervene. So the idea, and also in the same way, the reason behind the fact that the sale of human hair, for example, it's not permissible, is the damage to human dignity. Therefore, in explaining the words of important scholar Shaybani, Leklevi says that the reason for this, Shaybani says that a sale of human hair is not permissible. When Leklevi explained his words, he said that the idea, this idea is rooted in fact of the human dignity. The idea of not harming human dignity lies in the fact that it's not permissible to sell human hair, and also to use the bones or other organs after death. Also, it's not acceptable. But here there is also important point that fuqaha religious distinction said that according to fuqaha religious distinction shouldn't be observed in this regard. So in other words, all people, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, have equal rights in this regard. Another example, is it against human dignity to take advantage of breast milk? It's very interesting discussion in the fiqh books. I was very surprised when I read it because I'm also, like Recep Hoca said, I'm a mother of a child, one child. So in Hanafi's book, negative approach to usage of human body parts is also seen in the topic of using breast milk. It was discussed whether breast milk could be used. Generally, they said that whether breast milk could be an object of a contract. So there are two approaches were shown in this regard. According to fuqaha, who give a prominence to human dignity and inviolability, they said that it's not permissible to be an object of contract, human breast milk, because it damages the human dignity. Any part of human being shouldn't be denigrated by being an object of sale contract. For example, Kasani, one of the famous scholars of Hanafi Mezheb, clearly states that humans' dignity shouldn't be harmed by being an object of contract. But Hanafis generally, they allowed breast milk why? Because they said that it's necessary for the development of the child. As a rule, it's not permissible, but istihsanan, it's permissible because it is necessary for development of child. According to another group of fuqaha, it's permissible, generally Shafis think like that, to use breast milk and also make it an object of contract, because they said that their arguments, breast milk is a clean and useful substance. According to these scholars, it's very interesting. They use same argument and they have different conclusion. They said that it is against human dignity to say that milk, although milk is clean and usable substance, it cannot be object of contract. Why? Because they said that dirty or invaluable things are not accepted as a goods. And thus, when we said that breast milk cannot be, implicitly means that it is invaluable or dirty. And they said this is against the human dignity. So, although there are different approaches to breast milk, fuqaha generally do not accept the use or sale of any part of human on the grounds that it harms human dignity. The most important reason for their negative approach to this issue, they oppose the transformation of human into an object. So another example of the human dignity, the debate about human dignity, we can see it in the legal capacity of Safi. This is also a very interesting discussion. When I look at the status of human dignity in Islam, we see that it's important to consider the discussion regarding the ahliyya of a Safi. Safi is the one who uselessly spent his or her belongings, and there is a disagreement among the fuqaha as to whether a Safi's usage or property can be restricted or not. According to majority of fuqaha, it's possible to restrict the usage of private property of Safi. Some scholars consider this practice legitimate because they said that it is in the best interest of person. Some scholars say that it's applied to him as a punishment or protection. So they have different explanation, but same conclusion. But Abu Hanifa said that limiting, which I found very important for when we discuss the human dignity, he said that limiting the action of Safi is unacceptable. He has some detail on this issue, but I just want to summarize it. But he said that restricting the action of a person who is mentally stable but acts irresponsible in spending his property is damaging to his or her human dignity. So according to Abu Hanifa, damage to person dignity involves greater destruction than the destruction of his or her property. So in this case, he said that the less damaging one should be preferred. And another example of dignity, so we can see it in the dignity of the dead body. Human dignity is a quality that continues throughout life, as well as end of life, and also after death. The Prophet, peace be upon him, clearly states that there is no differences between the dead and living in the possession of the dignity. And also whether Muslim or not, it doesn't matter. In addition, there's a rich debate about whether it's makruh to use any part of human even after death in the classical works. Organ transplant, in the issue of organ transplant, you can see this debate. For example, Maliki scholar Muhammad bin Muhammad al-Elish states that Muslim or not, dead or alive, of human beings are reverent, and that Islamic scholar and in the consensus of in this regard. So you cannot use any part of the human body. But there's also for organ transplant, there's also another explanation, or istihsan, they use istihsan darura. So this is different topic. But I want to give some very interesting examples. Funeral rules. It's an important example that a person does not lose her dignity after death. According to fuqaha, consideration of washing and burial of dead as a fard al-kifaya and carrying it on the shoulders instead of animal is related to human dignity. So it's important that the fuqaha said the dead body shouldn't be carried on an animal. So I found very interesting debate on it. For example, Kasani sees it as a betrayal of human dignity to carry human bodies on animal backs like an object, even if they are dead, he said. According to him, even if it's a child, the funeral must necessarily be carried on the shoulders. Even in cases where it's necessary due to distance, he says that people should sit on an animal and carry the funeral on their shoulders. But in the modern times, it's quite opposite. But I look at the fatwas, in the classic, although there's such an approach in classical literature, no damage or no problem has been seen by modern scholars in the transport of funerals on a vehicle due to necessity. Actually, they use the necessity for explaining, and this hasn't been considered as a violation of human dignity. the necessity is a very important argument. And also, it is possible to see regulation on the protection of human dignity in Islamic law, especially in criminal law. This subject is quite broad, in fact, so it requires a separate talk actually. But I just want to briefly touch a couple of points. It's forbidden to harm a human's life, property, intellect, and dignity, or even to engage any humiliating behavior towards a human. For example, in criminal law, in Islamic criminal law, taking the original innocence, al-bara'atul asliye, as a base, or prohibition of torture, and for example, not applying the prisoner more than what they deserve of punishment, or prohibition of musla, torture and harming the body, also postponing the sentence of those who have excuses such as sickness or pregnancy, and also, especially in Hanafi fiqh, lowering the had penalty, not tazir, had penalties in suspicious cases. All regulations related to protecting human dignity. So in criminal law, we clearly see the idea. And as human dignity starts from mother's womb before the birth, as after death. Therefore, actually, abortion discussion should be considered in connection with the concept of honor or dignity. Actually, I didn't plan to deal directly with the issue of abortion today, but Seda told me that there's debates, and also saw the debates. It's up to date, especially for America, the issue of abortion today. So I just want to briefly summarize the approaches. When we look at the classical literature on abortion, we see that there are some discussion about abortion. There have been some scholars who say that abortion can be performed or can be permissible for certain reasons, especially in the first 40 days, or according to some 120 days. But although they said that there must be certain reasons for it. I would like to explain in the evidence and arguments in more detail, but at the end of my speech, I will not tire you further. Maybe, inshallah, in another session, because it's very debatable issue also. They have different arguments, proof. But just briefly, I would like to emphasize the opinion of many scholars or some scholars today, and also my approach, my opinion. So today, and then I will inshallah go conclusion. Today, many Islamic scholars approach to abortion negative from the first day of conception. The evidence is generally expressed like the protection of human life is one of the 5 basic principles and also aims of the religion of Islam. So abortion is directly harming this aim. Because the most honorable being, the human being, is respected and inviolable. The right to live is a fundamental right given by Allah. And from the moment when the male sperm and female egg unite and fertilization begins, so in a first moment actually, and no one, including the parents, has been allowed to interfere. So accordingly, many institutions and scholars today, there's also debate in today, but for example, Turkish Religious Affairs think the same. They said that it's not permissible to terminate the pregnancy without a justified and definite necessity, which is this necessity, the protection of the mother's life. So in other words, according to Islam, the only reason for abortion from the first moment is that the mother's life is in a danger. I hope this explanation is beneficial. So as a conclusion, as a result, since the first periods in Islam, it's considered that all people have equal dignity from the first period. As a matter of fact, the various terms such as al-karama, al-isma, and hurma were used in fiqh works to express this. And within these words, usually the word of karama and hurma, muhtaram, and mukarram are used to express the dignity that all humanity has. And from the classic books, I see that karama used just for, hurma used just for humans, but karama used both humans and other things also. Al-karamatun nas is used to refer human dignity, and this dignity, which is obtained from mere fact of being human, is directly related to Adamiyya, and this quality is seen as a grace of Allah. For this reason, it's not possible for a person to give up his dignity or transfer his own dignity to like someone else, or it cannot say that I don't want to dignity. It's compulsory, in other words. In fiqh thought, the concept of human dignity also refers to how a person should be treated. So isma theory here is very important. And also in fiqh, the concept of dignity is discussed not only at the theoretical level, but also in practical issues. The concept of dignity is one of the important arguments in various fiqh issues, such as making the human being or any organs, her body or his body, an object of sale contract. Also like the discussion about the breast milk and legal capacity of Safi. And there is a common emphasis in all these issues. Human being is not humiliated by being reduced to an object category, because the human being is a unique being which Allah has created as Ashraful Mahluqat, it says, or Zubdil Alam, and he or she, human being, is not a means but a purpose being. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tuba Hoca. It was great. You made an excellent survey to demonstrate universal human dignity, and your examples were also very illuminating. These are concrete examples. So you covered both theory and practice of it. But in your own field, like you deal with in biomedical issues now. I mean, I would like to start asking my first question. So how does human dignity in Islam reflects on medical procedures or medical operations? let's say organ plantation, euthanasia, you know, like genetical manipulations, like on these issues, how do you see reflections of human dignity? For instance, is euthanasia against human dignity or not? You know, organ transplantation, is it against human dignity or not? You know, changing genes, playing with the DNA of human beings, is it against human dignity or not? So how do you see, you know, these things? How are they related with each other? So inshallah, this is the first question. After that,
Yes.
we'll give opportunity to others to ask their questions.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for your questions, Recep Hocam. It's a really important argument in a biomedical issue, like I said, in the human organ transplant, for example. In the classical book, they use these arguments as for example, human hair can be object of a sale contract or not. So they are opposite of this idea because they said it's damaged the human dignity. And some scholars, modern scholars, they use the same argument for organ transplant. But the others, they use that, yes, it's damaged the human dignity, but also there is a necessity. So it's very important argument in the biomedical issue, in organ transplant, in euthanasia, and in abortion also, for example. Yes.
Yes. So what's your opinion on like you know, euthanasia? Is
Yeah,
it
I think that is also very important. We should consider the human dignity. For example, in euthanasia, it's the different topic, and it's very hard to summarize just 1 minute because it's my PhD thesis. So
because yeah, we don't want you to summarize your 300
yeah,
pages PhD to us. Just give us in 3 sentences.
yeah, but I think that we should consider at the end of life also the human dignity for like the withholding. So I'm not the opposite of generally the withholding treatment in the end of life.
Okay, so you say euthanasia is not acceptable.
Yeah,
It's against
euthanasia.
human dignity. So
Yes,
I mean, you know, treatment should continue. You know,
yes,
stopping
treatment
treatment.
should continue, but there's also the different type of the some call it euthanasia, some call it withholding treatment. So we should differentiate between the
Okay. Okay, maybe in the future, you know, we may listen another talk by Tuba Hoca about, you know, fıkıh approach on euthanasia, and there are
yes,
different types of euthanasia because it's not the same thing. You know,
yes,
sometimes
yes,
they
yes.
actually kill the person by giving poison, but sometimes they stop treatment and let the person die naturally by himself or herself. It's a complicated issue, but it might be good to listen to Tuba Hoca to present her PhD topic here, which is published as a book in Turkish. All right, I see that Ustaza Sadia Said Ali, she's raising hand. All right, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Rajab Hojam. I hope you're keeping well.
Alhamdulillah. How about you?
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, I'm well also. I have a question. I actually joined in a little late, so I might have missed some part of Sister Tuba's presentation. But from where I caught on, Sister was discussing about how human body parts cannot be used for sale purposes or to gain revenue. So my question is I have two questions stemming from this one point. My first question is that sometimes, you know, how people die in mysterious circumstances. So the forensic team, or the analysts, they try to do an autopsy or a postmortem where they try to, you know, understand what was the cause of death. And I feel that maybe they're trying to restore the dignity that this person needed. Or maybe he died, like I said, in mysterious circumstances, trying to figure out what went wrong and maybe give him justice post humously. But what do you have to say about that, sister? Maybe I'm wrong, but does that come under
so we can say if there is a necessity, so necessity here is important argument. If there is a necessity, so as a rule, you cannot touch human body, even for any reason. But if there is a necessity, so you can do it. So for example, in the breast milk, Hanafis believe that it cannot be the object of the sale contract, but there is a necessity for child. So istihsanan, they said it's yejuz, but as a rule, it's not yejuz. It's not permissible.
Right. Okay, Sister Tuba, my second question is, and I'll make it very quick. Since you were talking about organs not being used for, say, I'm just wondering if the function of an organ, if it's used for some revenue generation, for example, since I teach business ethics here in Pakistan, I was just wondering if, because you must have heard of the term intellectual capital and how it gives an edge to one organization over the others. And it's a very, it's a very corporate concept and people make millions, companies make millions of it. Do you think intellectual capital is also going to come under this? Because we are talking about the brain function. We're not talking about the brain as an organ, but its function. Do you think that is also against human dignity, to use the function of the brain to make money?
Yes, it's an interesting question. Let me think about that.
Okay, thank you.
So
Thank
much
you
for your
time.
question. Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very tricky question about
yes.
copyright.
Because
yes.
Hojam, it'll help me with my classes, because I try to integrate Islamic knowledge in business ethics when I'm teaching. So it would give me a better perspective. But inshallah, maybe
yeah, the copyright issue is another topic. It's a very different topic and very interesting topic. It's a special domain in Islamic law as well as modern law. We can discuss it on another occasion, inshallah. And Adil Nazir, please go ahead and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
My question is regarding the, when we talk about the human dignity from Islamic perspective, it is related to the biomedical issue like IVF. What is the ruling of the IVF, in vitro fertilization, when we talk about the human dignity? Because when we read the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَحَبُّ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ إِنَاسًا وَيَحَبُّ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ الذُّكُورَ وَيَحَبُّ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ. And and the another ayah is that Allah's plan is, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses someone a child, only a girl, someone only males, only boys, and someone Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not give someone to any of the child. وَيَحَبُّ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ أَقِيمًا. Is this like going to the Allah's plan when we think about the IVF, in vitro fertilization? What is the hukum of this IVF related to the biomedical issues and human dignity?
Yes, thank you so much for your question. All question needs to very long discussion actually. But the protection of human life from the first moment, and I believe that it's the aim of the religion of Islam, and not because the most honorable being, the human being, is respected and inviolable. The right to life, the right to live is a fundamental right and given by Allah. And I believe that from the moment when the male sperm and female egg fertilization begins, So any interference from the outside, I don't feel right, but as I said before, we need to discuss all detail in a detailed way. Just briefly, I can say it like that. I hope it's you can take the answer. And also, I saw a question in chat box about slaves. Yeah, for slaves or the acceptance of slaves and in Islam, it's actually important question that comes to mind when considering the fact that the valuation of the human being and making them an object of sales, a contract. So I believe that the Islam adopt a policy aimed to eliminating the institution of slavery, which had an ancient history before Islam. So Islam did it gradually. We can say that a slave is considered a person in many other matters in Islamic law when we see that. But although they are considered an object of contract in terms of legal proceeding, but illegal entity for in other issues, they have same rights like free person. We can say that the condition of slavery is a temporary status rather than an original feature. And this characteristic disappear when the slave is free. So it's temporary, and also Islam generally want eliminating the institution of slavery. So I can say like that.
More specifically, is it okay to make a slave's organs a subject for sale contract?
No, they said that it's the same. In this issue, slave or free man is the same. Like
yes,
really, Muslim or non-Muslim, same.
Yeah. Also, there is a big difference. Slave trade is haram. It's not acceptable. This is called like herd slaving. Like Americans, went to Africa and caught free people to make profit out of them. So, is this acceptable in Islam?
Yeah. Sorry, Recep Hocam.
Let's say when you look at the slave trade between Africa and America, so some people, went to Africa, caught free people, and turned them into slaves.
Yeah, of course.
So this is also like unacceptable in Islam.
Yes,
Only in war, like captives, and it's based on the reciprocity principle. So they made Muslim captives slaves, and Muslims made their captives slaves. And when they abolished this practice, Muslims also abolished this practice. In 1847, Ottoman Caliph Abdul Majid, he abolished slavery. From then on, it's haram, to practice slavery in Islam because the Khalifa Abdul Majid, as a Khalifa, based on the fatwa of the ulama, he abolished slavery because non-Muslims, abolished it because what justified slavery was that they made Muslim captives slaves. So based on reciprocity, Muslims also made non-Muslim captives slaves. But when they decided not to make Muslim captives slaves, Muslims also decided not to make non-Muslim captives slaves. And in 1847, slavery was abolished. So you cannot practice it anymore. And the Khalifa, based on the fatwa of the Shaykh al-Islam, he abolished slavery. Since then, no more slavery, in Islam. Okay, so is there another question?
Yes, Professor,
Yes.
just I want to know your views on this in vitro fertilization and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks in the Quran. Is this permissible?
Yes, Tuba Hoca, what do you say about that?
I think that he asked you. This does.
Yes, I
So
think
I believe that Hocam, it's very hard to say just it's permissible or not. Just a very quick answer. I don't feel that it's right. So
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so
You know, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly mentions
yes,
whom
so, so this is an issue, you know, that's discussed among the ulama, and they have like different positions on this issue, and also very important how it is practiced. So Tuba Hoca refrains from giving fatwa to you, you know, whether saying yes or no. So you should consult some other people giving specific details to them, because sometimes, you know, our ulama don't give fatwa, you know, like they asked Imam Malik 40 questions, and he said to 39 of them, La adri. He said,
Yes.
I don't know. And he answered only one question. So Tuba Hoja says, La adri, you know, I mean, ask other people about this question. Yeah, I mean, issuing fatwa is a big responsibility. One needs to know the details rather than a blanket, you know, judgment. One has to study each individual case separately, and how it's practiced. Then, you know, one can say something about it. I also personally like avoid, you know, issuing fatwa, especially over internet, you know, without knowing the details of it. Especially there are people who are like, you know, muftis, and you know, they are you know, professionally doing these things. Better to refer to them rather than giving a fatwa over internet very quickly. All right, my
yes,
dear friend.
Sheikh, besides, you know, giving fatwa and all the fake issues, what are your views on the, I want to know personally from your perspective, how do you see it?
Is this to me or to Bahoja?
To you, Hocam.
No, yes, Professor.
To me,
Yes.
I have to see the details, like who is asking this question, what's the case, who's doing it. I have to see all the details, you know, then I can say something, but I cannot say something, you know, in general, because there are many abuses involved in this practice. So, you know, it's very difficult to say yes or no in that case. Yeah, so I use my right to silence. Okay,
Thank you very much.
It seems there is no more questions. So thank you very much, Tuba Hoca, for your excellent presentation and bringing up this issue and showing its implications. And the questions demonstrated that the implications of human dignity in fiqh is much larger than the cases you highlighted. But also, all these questions shows the centrality of the issue of human dignity. We have to study it further. And the purpose here in this presentation was not to issue a fatwa or anything, but just to draw your attention to a central concept in Islamic law. Thank you very much, Tuba Hoca, and you see that there is a lot of work for you to do.
Yes, absolutely.
And all these questions are waiting answers from our fuqaha and ulama. Jazakallah khairan, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much for having me today. Ma'as-salama.
Thank you. Tala, we are ending, right?
Yes. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.